Hi everyone, Adam here. I just want to take a moment to talk to you about the prepared talk. Every time I say that, it makes it sound like I'm about to have a PSA about drugs. Anyway, I'd like to take a moment to talk to you about the prepared talk. Just kidding. Anyway, so some things that you need to know about the prepared talk that make it different from the speeches that you've done so far. Let's review. All right. In your first talk, your training demo was concerned with you manipulating props to teach people how to do a thing, and then we checked to make sure that they could do the thing. All right. In your informational, we talked about you presenting information, usually from a PowerPoint or a flip chart, conveying information so that people learned about a thing, and then they left there knowing about the thing. In your prepared talk, it's more persuasive, and it's more like a speech. So even though you're in the same room, I want you to imagine how you would give a speech if you were giving it from like the TED stage. If you don't know about TED, look it up. And so you're presenting supposedly to a larger audience with a little bit less opportunity for interaction, and that changes the way that you present. All right, and so we're going to talk about how that goes. So your prepared talk is very much focused on you and your words, and very little visuals, which we're going to talk about in a moment. And again, its purpose is to not just inform or teach people about a thing, but to persuade them or convince them that your way is best, all right, for whatever it is that your topic is. Now I want to show you, let's see here. I want to show you this guy. This is whenever you turn in your outline, which is what you're going to do for your prepared talk. This is the way that we're going to score it. And I just want to show this to you so that there's no surprises. We check form for grammar, sentence structure, blah, blah, blah. Introduction, these things are similar, right? Do you catch the audience's attention at the beginning of the speech? Do you introduce your topic? Do you talk about why it's important? Do you talk about the main points of the talk? For your body of your speech, is there 3 to 4 main points that we work through? Is each point clear and concise? Is it supported with data? Is there a good transition between the points, or do we just sort of ramble around? And then finally, do we conclude where we call the audience to action? And this could be, get out there and write your senator, or try conserving energy at home. Like, it could be any number of things, but whatever it is, figure it out. And then try to connect back to the beginning if possible to come full circle to give everybody closure. Now I want to show you, this is the sheet that we'll use to actually score you. There's some things on here I want you to look at. So a lot of this is very similar. Is there, just like the outline, did you create an interest? Did you communicate why you're talking? Did you have a main point, everything organized? This one's the one that I want to point out right here, participation and interaction. Now remember when we had that day in class, in lecture, and we talked about all the different ways that you could potentially do interaction in class. And we came up with things like you could give them a quiz, or you could let them try doing the thing, or you could have a discussion. Well, now whenever you're giving a talk, presumably to a large audience from a stage, which is what this is supposed to resemble, you're kind of limited, right? And so what we look for in this particular talk is, do you do things like question the audience? And this could be like a real question, like, who here likes paying taxes? And then they could not put their hands up. Or it could be like a rhetorical question, like, what would the world be like without fossil fuels? So those are examples of things. And so you want to try to build those in where possible so that it's not just you talking to your audience for 8 to 10 minutes. You ask them questions to sort of bring them along with you, all right? And that makes it more interesting for them. Now, when we come down here to visuals, we use visuals in a slightly different way in the prepared talk. And I have a video that I'm about to show you for this. So you can still use props. You can still use handouts. You can still use the PowerPoint behind you, but you use them differently, okay? And so in your training demo, you had props, and you were like, I'm going to do this thing with the props, and then you narrated what you were doing. That's not a thing that you would do in the prepared talk. In your informational, you had a PowerPoint behind you, and you would turn around and refer to it. Be like, oh, as you can see here, blah, blah, blah. No, you would not do that. So I have 2 good examples from TED Talks that I thought that you would like to see. We're only going to watch a moment of it. This one, The Power of Introverts by Susan Cain, talks about how she used to go to camp as a young girl, and it was not what she thought it was going to be. And I'll let her tell you the rest of it. And I want you to notice how she uses her suitcase as a prop without ever referring to it.
When I was 9 years old, I went off to summer camp for the first time, and my mother packed me a suitcase full of books. which to me seemed like a perfectly natural thing to do, because in my family, reading was the primary group activity. And this might sound antisocial to you, but for us, it was really just a different way of being social. You had the animal warmth of your family sitting right next to you, but you were also free to go roaming around the adventure land inside your own mind. And I had this idea that camp was going to be just like this, but better. I had a vision of 10 girls sitting in a cabin, cozily reading books in their matching nightgowns. Camp was more like a keg party without any alcohol. And on the very first day, our counselor gathered us all together, and she taught us a cheer that she said we would be doing every day for the rest of the summer to instill camp spirit. And it went like this. R-O-W-D-I-E, that's the way we spell rowdy, rowdy, rowdy. Let's get rowdy. Yeah. So I couldn't figure out for the life of me why we were supposed to be so rowdy, or why we had to spell this word incorrectly.
Anyway, so hopefully you caught how she used her bag. Now, she didn't like come out with her bag and be like, my mom used to pack me a bag for camp. Here are the things that go in the bag. No, it was just for effect. Just a prop, just a visual to help give people a better understanding of her story. Here's a second one that's more, it's not a prop, it's a visual. And this lady is talking to us about why gaming could make the world better. And she has a picture that she puts up behind her and keeps behind her when she talks about how gaming is good for you. So let's take a
It's
look
probably
at
a bit of a counterintuitive idea, so I'll say it again, let it sink in. If we want to solve problems like hunger, poverty, climate change, global conflict, obesity, I believe that we need to aspire to play games online for at least 21 billion hours a week by the end of the next decade. No, I'm serious. I am. Here's why. This picture pretty much sums up why I think games are so essential to the future survival of the human species. Truly. This is a portrait by a photographer named Phil Toledano. He wanted to capture the emotion of gaming, so he set up a camera in front of gamers while they were playing. And this is a classic gaming emotion. Now, if you're not a gamer, you might miss some of the nuance in this photo. You probably see the sense of urgency, a little bit of fear, but intense concentration, deep focus on tackling a really difficult problem. If you are a gamer, you will notice a few nuances here. The crinkle of the eyes up and around the mouth is a sign of optimism. And the eyebrows up is surprise. This is a gamer who's on the verge of something called an epic win. Now, oh, you've heard of that. Okay, good. So we have some gamers among us. So
Anyway, so that's an example of using visuals. To notice she didn't come in with like a graph behind her and say, I'd like to talk to you about the trends in logging over the past 5 years. No, that's not what you're shooting for. This picture is meant to convey something very quickly. And notice how the camera in this video is supposed to mimic like the audience, like what they would be looking at. And so we look at the picture and then we look back at her. We mainly stay on her because that's where the focus is for this particular type of talk. So those are different ways to use it, but hopefully that makes some sense. So coming full circle, we'll come back to this is where you turn in your assignment, your outline. Again, we're looking for not a certain amount of page count. There's no real format that you need to follow for this outline. But you just need to give us, an introduction, your 3 to 4 main points, and your closing, and then examples of your visuals, and then give us enough so that Robert can, understand what it is that you're trying to do. Because if you turn in something and we can't really figure out what you're doing because it's so sparse, we can't help you in any way. We can't give you any feedback, and then you might have a bad experience. So give us a super detailed account of what your plan is for bringing people around. Remember, this has to be in the wheelhouse of your theme. And we've had some really good ones in the past couple of years. So looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with. If you have any questions, feel free to email. Otherwise, we will see you next week.